Tuesdays, the March edition, and we're covering a few things today. We're still trying to get the lighting right because now that it's daylight savings time, we've got all this glare coming in from outside. So, woo, welcome spring. So March, we got a lot of things going on. First of all, wow, today is the first anniversary of the lockdown. You know, that was, everything kind of came to a halt a year ago today. And so we'll be talking about the pandemic, and I'm pulling up a picture. You can't see very well, but that was the Chronicle headline on March 17th last year, stay at home.
Which we did.
Which we did.
Yes.
And we've got, surprise, we've got some poems about that.
Yeah.
It's also Women's History Month, so we'll be featuring some of our favorite women poets. What else are we doing this month?
Well, there's,
a couple of days after our February Poetry on Tuesdays, Lawrence Ferlinghetti passed away. And we've been spending a lot of time this month reading his poetry, thinking about him and his enormous contribution to the city and the world. And we visited City Lights and did some readings out there. You may have seen a couple of Mark's videos.
And went into a door I'd never gone into in all my years, 40 plus years ago, went into City Lights. You never walked in the door right at the stairway to the poetry room. You always walked in, but that was apparently it's
social distancing.
Social distancing, because the other one by the cash register was just too narrow.
I was immediately just dove back into my iconic copy of Coney Island of the Mind, which I bought in college for $1. Actually, I probably paid less for that because I probably bought it used at Logos in Santa Cruz. But yeah, we've got some Ferlinghetti poems to talk about tonight too. And I'm going to confess something. So some of you follow me on Twitter as JJ in SF. Some of you may follow Mark J. Mitchell, writer, on Twitter. But I have another secret Twitter account called Ferlingetti Fan. And a couple of years ago, Mark gave me this wonderful book for Christmas, What is Poetry? And in this book, Ferlinghetti, and it's paired with this wonderful artwork by Frederick Mott also. It's just line after line after line of his thoughts on what constitutes poetry. And so I created a Twitter account last year called Ferlingetti Fan, and I just post these lines one at a time. Like, poetry is the paint is, see, I'm getting it wrong already. Never mind.
Take two.
Take two. Poetry is the supreme fiction. Pick one. Anyone.
A poem is a phosphorescent instant illuminating time.
In the morning dove, morning love, and nothing cries out like the poet, like the cry of the heart. Poetry holds death at bay.
Yes, it does. I understood that one. Poetry is more than painting sunlight on the side of a house.
So it's his random thoughts on poetry. Absolutely recommend this book. It's absolutely brilliant. You can just dip into it a line at a time, or you can dip into my my Twitter feed and pick up a line at a time. Like I said, and it's called Ferlinghetti Fan. Anyhow, let's go ahead and start. What have you got lined up for us today, Mark?
I want to start with one of my favorite poems by Lawrence Ferlinghetti. And that's right. That I have. Yes, it is. There we go. And this I like in part because I used to read it when to people on my Fisherman's Wharf walking tour. This is about the Beniamo Bufano's statue of St. Francis, which is now in the north west parking lot, corner of the parking lot of the Longshoremen's Union Hall. It was originally in front of St. Francis Church. And from A Coney Island of the Mind, They were putting up the statue of St. Francis in front of the church of St. Francis in the city of San Francisco, in a little side street just off the avenue where no birds sang, and the sun was coming up on time in its usual fashion, and just beginning to shine on the statue of St. Francis where no birds sang. And a lot of old Italians were standing all around in the little side street just off the avenue, watching the wily workers who were hoisting up the statue with a chain and a crane and other implements. And a lot of young reporters in button-down clothes were taking down the words of one young priest who was propping up the statue with all his arguments. And all the while no birds sang any St. Francis passion, and while the lookers kept looking up at St. Francis and his arms outstretched to the birds which weren't there, a very tall and very purely naked young virgin with very long and very straight straw hair, wearing only a very small bird's nest in a very existential place, kept passing through the crowd, all the while up and down the steps in front of St. Francis, her eyes downcast, all the while singing to herself.
Thank you, Lawrence Ferlinghetti.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love that.
For that
I love
image.
it.
Yeah.
And I love reading that poem to people in front of that statue,
Yes.
which you can do, because I don't think a lot of people have been in front of a work of art that a poem has been written about. So,
Yep, that's
you
true.
know,
What's up next?
Well, so, and the
Are we needing to let people into the room, by the way?
yes.
Make sure everybody gets in.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay.
And see, let me check the copyright. It was about 2000.
What do you?
No, 1997. Lawrence followed up A Coney Island in Mind with A Far Rockaway of the Heart. And here is a very short poem about poetry from that. In every poem and every picture, a sensation in the eye and heart, something to jolt you awake from the rapt sleep of living, and a flash of pure epiphany where all stands still in a diamond light, transfixed, revealed for what it truly is in all its mystery. So a bird is an animal flown into a tree, singing inscrutable melodies as a lover stands transparent, screened against the sun, smiling darkly in a blinding light. Because he didn't stop writing in 1957.
That's absolutely true. By the way, when we were at City Lights the other day, I picked up, even though we've got most of these poems in other places, this wonderful little chapbook, mini book. It's not a chapbook, a little book of Ferlinghetti's San Francisco poems. So, and it's just chock full of that poem, that the poem about St. Francis that you read, and lots and lots of other poems, all about our city. And it's a keeper. You should all pick that up. And by the way, they were also giving away for free these beautiful postcards, which has his poem, The Golden Gate. At the Golden Gate, a single plover far at sea wings across the horizon. A single rower, almost out of sight, rows his skull into eternity. And I take a Buddha crystal in my hand and begin becoming pure light. You can get those at City Lights.
Just passing them on out.
Yep. Okay, next up.
Well, I had one more from Lawrence, and then to kind of transition after that. Where to go? Where did I put it? Where did I put it? Nobody's fault but me.
That's I'm glad you said it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's another one from A Far Rockaway. The mind dances when the body lets it, and when the body cannot, the mind dances within. But sometimes they move together, and together sway, and fly together, and dance and sing, and then it is indeed an enchanting thing. Lawrence, I get to call him that. I met him once or twice. Not to, so he'd know. But,
I'm going to stop here and mention that I must have done something wrong in setting this up, because I'm getting texts from people that you can't get in. And I don't know how to change that now. So I'm going to have to just send you all the link afterwards. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to change that.
yeah, I'm wondering what.
Okay, we're back. So clearly I haven't mastered this Zoom thing yet, and I've been getting texts from people saying they're trying to get in and can't, and I really apologize. I'm so sorry, because I don't know how to change that mid-meeting.
No, we don't. Yeah, sorry.
We're really sorry, but we are recording this for later viewing. So we're just going to proceed as if you were here in the room with us, because I know you're out there in spirit. So anyhow,
Okay, so
what's next?
So where we were, is before we leave Lawrence, I'm going to transition from Lawrence to some women poets. But I do want to say that Lawrence is, and after his death in particular, everybody kept saying, "Oh, the great beat poet Lawrence Ferlinghetti." Lawrence Ferlinghetti insisted all his life that he was not a beat poet. He just knew the beat poets, and he would rather be thought of as the last of the Bohemians than the first of the beats. However, this lady is a beat poet, and she wrote this lovely poem about City Lights books in 1961.
And she's also a San Francisco poet.
Also a San Francisco poet, also a late San Francisco poet, also at one time our poet laureate. And this is Diane DePrima's City Lights in 1961. Going there for the first time, it was so much smaller than that crowded downstairs full of poetry, racks of tattered little mags against the wall, those rickety white tables where folks sat reading, writing. Vesuvio's was like an adjunct office. Arriving again a year later, 2 kids in tow, Lawrence gave me a huge stack of his publications. "I've got books," he said, "like other people have mice." And North Beach never stopped being mysterious. When I moved out here in 1968, that publishing office on Filbert and Green was a mecca, a place to meet up with my kids if we got separated during one of those innumerable demonstrations. Though Lawrence worried and told me I should keep them out of harm's way at home. I thought they should learn whatever it was we were learning. Office right around the corner from the bead store where I found myself daily picking up supplies. How many late nights did we haunt the store, buying scads of new poems from all corners of the earth, then head to the all-night Tower Records full of drag queens and revolutionaries to get a few songs. And dig it, City Lights still here, like some old lighthouse, though all the rest is gone. The poetry's moved upstairs, the publishing office right there now, too, and crowds of people, 1/3 my age or less, still haunt the stacks, seeking out voices from all quarters of the globe.
Absolutely perfectly captures the spirit of City Lights.
Yes, it does.
And I haven't told you this, but I was in another Zoom meeting the other day, and one of the women said that she used to live right next door to City Lights way back when. And one night somebody's bunny died, and they didn't know what to do with the dead bunny. So they buried it in the lower floor of City Lights.
Down in the basement?
Yeah, down in the basement. They kind of dug a hole in the, pulled up some floorboards, dug a hole, and buried the bunny down there. So there's a dead bunny in the basement.
Well. So that's what I refer to as the old poetry room. That's
exactly.
She described the exact look of the. I always thought the downstairs poetry room kind of smelled like Allen Ginsberg.
And probably like Dead Bunny.
Yeah, well, that might have been Dead Bunny, but I still think of the upstairs as a new poetry room, but it's been there for about 30 years.
Yeah, well, it's all relative at this point.
Now, another poet, also beat, and not known well enough. She's very obscure, but one claim to fame she has is that she got arrested at City Lights Books.
For what?
For her dirty book. For her the love poems which were about joyous sex when you're in love. And young ladies in 1967 were not supposed to write about things like that. So she got arrested. They confiscated her books from there and from the psychedelic shop. I'm not going to read one of the dirty poems.
Thank you.
Um,
But you bought this at City Lights.
I bought this at City Lights the last time we were there.
Show the folks.
Okay, it's Lenore Kindell, and she wrote until she died in 2005, I think. The magnificent poem is just too long to read. First, they murdered the angels. Seek it out. It is a very important
First,
poem.
they murdered the angels?
First, they murdered the angels.
Okay, so what are you reading today?
I'm reading another, this is Melody for Married Men. I like to watch the young girls walk, swinging their hips and hair, swinging their hopes and dreams in magic circles. They never walk alone, but move in twos and threes, confiding audacities to each other, twitching their tails and giggling, while 30-year-old men watch from their windows, drinking coffee with their wives and making fantasies of Muslim heaven.
Well, thank you, Lenore Kendall.
Yes, it's a pretty little poem. I got a chance. This has been out in hardback for a year. I was waiting for the paperback, and it doesn't seem to come along. But I didn't want to miss it because I think she's a wonderful poet, great spirit. There's just incredible life to her work, and she should be better known.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, what else you got?
Now we're looking at women. Look at that. What we'll do. The classic here.
Elizabeth Bishop.
Elizabeth Bishop. We're going to do actually the one everybody knows.
Which is?
One Art.
Okay.
And I'm many reasons to love it. It's the villanelle.
I love villanelles.
The art of losing isn't hard to master. So many things seem filled with the intent to be lost that their loss is no disaster. Lose something every day, except the flutter of lost door keys, the fluster of lost door keys, the hour badly spent. The art of losing isn't hard to master. Then practice losing farther, losing faster, places and names, and where it was you meant to travel. None of these will bring disaster. I lost my mother's watch, and look, my last of, or next to last, of 3 loved houses went. The art of losing isn't hard to master. I lost 2 cities, lovely ones, and vaster, some realms I owned, 2 rivers, a continent. I missed them, but it wasn't a disaster. Even losing you, the joking voice, a gesture I love, I shan't have lied. It's evident the art of losing's not too hard to master, though it may look like, write it, disaster.
Elizabeth Bishop was a treasure. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Yeah. And we're celebrating Women's History Month. These are great women poets of mostly the last half of the 20th century. But to something for you to read.
Oh, well, this looks familiar. Denise Levertov. And wait, we read this at our wedding, right?
I read it at Matthew's wedding. I'm not sure I knew it at our wedding.
Okay. But this is one of our favorite poems. And anybody who's been married a long time will recognize this. The Ache of Marriage by Denise Levertov. The ache of marriage, thigh and tongue, beloved, are heavy with it. It throbs in the teeth. We look for communion and are turned away, beloved, each and each. It is Leviathan, and we in its belly looking for joy, some joy, not to be known outside it, 2 by 2 in the arc of the ache of it. You know, I've mentioned this frequently to Mark that in college, I took a literature class because I was a lit major. And one of the poems we read was William Carlos Williams' To Asphodel, That Greeny Flower. And I just didn't get it. I absolutely didn't get it. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand why it was such a revered poem. I didn't understand what it was about. And well, it was about two people who had been married a very long time and were still in love. And now I get it. There are poems that strike you at certain times of your life. Poems, songs, movies. Sometimes, if you don't like it, it just may not be the right time in your life for it. Sometimes it's just because they're bad,
Oh,
but
yeah.
sometimes,
And sometimes it's also because of a bad teacher.
and sometimes it's a bad teacher, and I don't even remember who the teacher was, but I wasn't ready for, at the age of 19, I definitely wasn't ready for a poem about long love. I didn't know what love was at that point, and thanks to you, I do now.
Yeah, and I try.
Yeah. All right, enough mushy stuff.
All right.
Next poem, please.
Well, let's move on to the virus and the shut lockdown. And it just so happens that a couple of days ago, the new issue of New Reader magazine came out. It's an online magazine. You can download a copy for free. Just go to New Reader magazine, and the theme was viral. And they published a few of my poems here. They also did an interview with me. There's a lot of pictures because I sent them a lot of pictures. She took the pictures. Yes, this one took the pictures.
Yes.
But especially during Lent, I write a poem every day during Lent, and the lockdown started during last Lent. And when you write about what you see and what's in front of you, and that was what was in front of me. So these are
Poems about.
poems about the lockdown and the virus itself. Starting with the virus Espinella, which is a Spanish form. Sealed doors won't keep the plague outside. Your mask is a delusion. Disease waits. You'll drop it soon. When lungs inflate with air that we all share, it finds a way through mesh. You try to hide, to fool infections. The news brays numbers that mean nothing. Spring sprays sunlight. People wander the shops. They always will until the cops stop them. Open your door. Breathe. Pray.
That just reminds me of, when the lockdown started, I was already locked down. I was housebound because I was recovering from hip replacement surgery. And when the lockdown started, I literally couldn't go outside. And Mark would do all our grocery shopping and venture out to whatever necessary tasks needed to be done. And he would bring me pictures because I was hearing stories of boarded up windows and signage everywhere to wear masks, stay inside, wash your hands, all these things, all the outward signs of the pandemic. But I couldn't go out and view them myself. So every day he would come home with pictures of these things, and he was my eyes to the world. So that poem reminds me of that.
No, and this is about one of those walks.
Okay.
This is a quarantine walk. Purple blooms pierce ash gray clouds, refreshing the bay, stone still below. Today outside is foreign, bright color, welcome, missed visitor whose name you forgot. Slow tide shift, you see it. Dark hills across water, as still as time. Flowers for a bride, a small gift. Your slow walk down the slope across chalked graffiti is almost done. It's only allowed for health reasons. You step with stealth as if you're transgressing some new law. We're all confined by disease, by strict time. Turn the corner. Pray for sun.
And of course, when the lockdown started on March 16th last year, we all thought it would last, what, a couple of weeks, at the most a month. And here we are a year later. And even though things have opened up considerably since then, life is still different.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're still in pandemic. We are both, thank goodness, we've both had both of our vaccinations. But we haven't seen our families in well over a year. A lot of our friends. So we just hope that as things open up, please, folks, remember to stay safe, stay careful. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to do one more about this. And this is about. This is from Roshi.
His book.
My book, yes.
Available at City Lights Books. Excuse me. Oops.
Yeah. I wish it was.
We wish it was. We haven't asked them yet.
Yeah.
It's available at Green Apple Books. Green Apple. Support Green Apple.
Okay.
Okay.
And this is about the city. As I recall, this is written in Welsh form.
Okay. And about when was this written?
This was written April of last year.
Okay, so still new.
Yeah. So empty city. Because foghorns still paint the eastward sky, piercing the pink faint light with low songs. Because a red bridge can carry one car, pulling the lone ferry floating to dawn. Because there's a tower and a beach called North, one breathless walker resting at its top. Because a rogue pyramid hides below glass and glass light slides down its empty slope. Because forever, a kiss of lost gold, a small promise in the cooling air. Because she doesn't brag but shows off. It's San Francisco, West's last prayer.
There are plenty of parts of the city where you'll see lots of people and it looks, if not normal, at least closer to it. But the financial district is a ghost town. It's absolutely, we've been on, Sansom or Montgomery Street in the middle of the day when it's usually shoulder to shoulder and there was nobody.
Yeah.
We went to the Embarcadero a couple of weeks ago at rush hour at 8 o'clock, 8:30 in the morning, which is usually just absolutely bustling with people flooding into the city via all the ferries. And it was absolutely empty.
You could drive a car down the center hall of the ferry building.
It was just, and that hit me like a gut punch. That reminded me that we are so far from normal.
Well,
yeah.
So other things happen in spring. So we're going to cheer things up now because one of the things that happens in spring is baseball.
Spring training is going on.
Spring training is going on. I'm going to do this one. You're going to do the other one.
Okay.
I'm going to give you the origin of baseball, and she's going to give you the baseball canto. The origin of baseball by Kenneth Patchen. Someone has been walking in and out of the world without coming to much decision about anything. The sun seemed too hot most of the time, there weren't enough birds around, and the hills had a silly look when he got on top of one. The girls in heaven, however, thought nothing of asking to see his watch, like you would want someone to tell a joke. Time, they'd say. What's that mean? Time. Laughing with the edges of their white mouths like a flutter of paper in a madhouse. And he'd stumble over General Sherman or Elizabeth B. Browning, muttering, "Can't you keep your big wings out of the aisle?" But down again, there'd be millions of people without enough to eat, and men with guns just standing there shooting each other. So he wanted to throw something, and he picked up a baseball.
The origin of baseball through the eyes of a poet.
Mm-hmm. So, continuing our Ferlinghetti theme.
Actually, it's in here.
In there? You got it in there, or I got it here?
I got it right here. She said, baseball canto, right?
Yeah, yep.
Okay, told you, handy book, this San Francisco Poems. This is a poem by Ferlinghetti. It's about baseball, but about so much more.
Giants baseball.
It's about Giants baseball and about so much more. I went to my very first baseball game at Candlestick Park. My dad took me when I was 11 years old, 1964. And anybody who knows about baseball, 1964, the Giants, Willie Mays, Willie McCovey, Orlando Cepeda, Juan Marichal, Gaylord Perry. I mean, the hits just kept coming. And so here we go, baseball canto. What? Watching baseball, sitting in the sun, eating popcorn, reading Ezra Pound, and wishing Juan Marichal would hit a hole right through the Anglo-Saxon tradition in the first canto and demolish the barbarian invaders. When the San Francisco Giants take the field and everyone stands up to the national anthem and some Irish tenor's voice piped over the loudspeakers with all the players struck dead in their places and the white umpires like Irish cops in their black suits and their little black caps pressed over their hearts, standing still and straight like at some funeral of a Blarney bartender and all facing east as if expecting some great wide hope or the founding fathers to appear on the horizon like 1066 or 1776 or all that. But Willie Mays appears instead in the bottom of the first and a roar goes up as he clouts the first one into the sun and takes off like a foot runner from Thebes. The ball is lost in the sun and maidens wail after him, but he keeps running through the Anglo-Saxon epic. And Tito Fuentes comes up looking like a bullfighter in his tight pants and small pointed shoes. And the right field bleachers go mad with Chicanos and blacks and Brooklyn beer drinkers. Sweet Tito, sock it to him, sweet Tito. And sweet Tito puts his foot in the bucket and smacks one that don't come back at all and flees around the bases like he's escaping from the United Fruit Company as the gringo dollar beats out the pound. And sweet Tito beats it out like he's beating out usury, not to mention fascism and anti-Semitism. And Juan Marichal comes up and the Chicano bleachers go loco again as Juan belts the first fastball out of sight and rounds first and keeps going and rounds second and rounds third and keeps going and hits pay dirt to the roars of the grungy populace as some nut presses the backstage panic button for their tape recorded national anthem again to save the situation, but it don't stop nobody this time in their revolution round the loaded white bases in this last of the great Anglo-Saxon epics to the territorio libre of baseball. Gosh, I love that poem.
I know. That's why I made sure you read it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Like I said, about baseball, but about so much more.
I've written a fair amount about baseball myself, so I figured I'd read one of my baseball poems. This one, for those who remember, is dedicated and inspired by Jim Lincecum. Called Late Morning Innings, and because I'm that kind of guy, it has an epigraph from Camus. The facet of a diamond in which the gem's inner luster is reflected but not exhausted. An old whiz kid stared at the plate, breathing in new mown grass and dirt. The comfortable swing of his magic arm called back his runaway boyhood and all the long afternoons of stiff practice. This mound was home. The stands were empty. Last time here, running on empty but still hanging K's, that shrinking plate like the saucers he used for practice when he was 10. All those balls in the dirt. He was the phenom of his neighborhood, and that was enough. Now that arm feels each toss. He's disarmed on his old home field, the empty bleachers, the silence from his boyhood with his vanished father and those chipped plate meals. Knowing he's alone, he rubs red dirt on a ball, tests a slider for practice, low and away. All those doctors, one practiced elbow voodoo, another ignored the arm, made him regress, form balls of wet dirt, throw at old pictures and empty frames. That talking doc, be the plate, he'd say. He knew it wasn't childhood, it was eyes, it was aim. Balls found wood instead of air. Even if he practiced like some first violinist, he'd miss that plate. Every tendon, every ache in his lazy arm recalled lost power. He was empty as a wall socket. He only ruled dirt, and only when his sinker sank. He felt dirty, useless. He faced the cheap seats, pulling his hood up against drizzle. All those empty seats, full in a few hours. Batting practice still draws diehards. He rubs the ruined arm, walks to the backstop and kisses the plate, spitting out dirt. He'll throw batting practice in another neighborhood. His dangling arm holds that much. There's empty air across each plate.
Boy, I can't wait to get back to a baseball game. It's been entirely too long since we've been to a live baseball game.
I'm gonna do two short baseball poems to
Okay.
wrap up the baseball section
Okay.
of the home.
And believe it or not, I have another woman poet to read
Okay,
too.
I think you might have that.
Yeah.
So we have, you can take one, I can take one of the picture of
Which
the
one?
base stealer.
Oh, you love doing the base stealer, so I
Yeah.
guess I'll do the picture.
Okay.
So this is Robert Francis, one of our favorite poets, and one of our favorite baseball fans. Oops, there it is. So this is Pitcher. His art is eccentricity. His aim, how not to hit the mark he seems to aim at. His passion, how to avoid the obvious. His technique, how to vary the avoidance. The others throw to be comprehended. He throws to be a moment misunderstood. Yet not too much. Not errant, wild, but every seeming aberration willed. Not to, yet still to communicate, making the batter understand too late. That is one of the best explanations of major league pitching I've ever seen.
Yes, it is.
And it's a darn fine poem
And
too.
it's a darn fine poem, and it's funny.
Yeah.
It gets it done.
Yeah, he's looks like he's aiming at something, but you're not supposed to hit it.
And you know, Walt Whitman was heartbroken when he heard the pitchers were trying to deceive batters.
Or Walt.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
And
next.
that's the sort of thing I know.
Yeah, that's something you know. Okay.
Well, we have another position here. We got a base stealer. The base stealer. Poised between going on and back, pulled both ways, taut like a tightrope walker, fingertips pointing the opposites. Now bouncing tiptoe like a dropped ball or a kid skipping rope. Come on, running a scattering of steps sideways, how he teeters, skitters, tingles, teases, taunts them, hovers like an ecstatic bird. He's only flirting. Crowd him, delicate, now!
And if you've ever watched somebody trying to steal a base, that's it. That's exactly, it captures that exact tension, that excitement. Yeah.
If you want to give us the moon poet, and then I have a Ferlinghetti as a finale.
Okay. Can you bring her over, please, Audrey? Yeah. Yep, she's over there. You can bring her too if you like, but yeah.
It's falling down.
Okay, well, it's Women's History Month, and we're doing poetry, and how can we not do Audre Lorde? Isn't this beautiful? This was made for me by my dear friend, the Reverend Dr. Megan Rohrer, and this is for you, Megan, and this is for Audrey. The Electric Slide Boogie. And there was just a little joy in here that I thought I'd share with you. New Year's Day, 1:16 a.m., and my body is weary beyond time to withdraw and rest. Ample room allowed me in everyone's head, but community calls right over the threshold, drums beating through the walls, children playing their truck dramas under the collapsible coat rack in the narrow hallway outside my room. The TV lounge next door is wide open. It is midnight in Idaho, and the throb, easily subtle spin of the electric slide boogie sidestepping around the corner of the parlor, past the sweet clink of dining room glasses and the edged aroma of slightly overdone Dutch apple pie, all laced together with the rich, dark laughter of Gloria and her high-octave sisters. How hard it is to sleep in the middle of life. I just love that.
Mhm. Yeah.
How hard it is to sleep in the middle of life. We've all been there. Thank you, Audrey.
Yep.
Okay, so what you got?
Well, I'm going to wrap up with, as a young Catholic boy in Catholic high school, at age 15, this is maybe the second, maybe the first Lawrence Ferlinghetti poem I came across. And
Okay.
you're 16-year-old Catholic kid just outgrowing his faith, and you come across Christ Climbed Down by Lawrence Ferlinghetti. Christ climbed down from his bare tree this year and ran away to where there were no rootless Christmas trees hung with candy canes and breakable stars. Christ climbed down from his bare tree this year and ran away to where there was no gilded Christmas trees, no tinsel Christmas trees, and no tin foil Christmas trees, and no pink plastic Christmas trees, and no black Christmas trees, and no powder blue Christmas trees hung with electric candles and encircled by tin electric trains and clever cornball relatives. Christ climbed down from his bare tree this year and ran away to where no intrepid Bible salesman covered the territory in two-tone Cadillacs, and where no Sears robot creches, complete with plastic babe and manger, arrived by parcel post, the babe by special delivery, and where no televised wise men praised the Lord Calvert whiskey. Christ climbed down from his bare tree this year and ran away to where no fat hand-shaking stranger in red flannel suit and a fake white beard went around passing himself off as some sort of North Pole saint crossing the desert to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania in a Volkswagen sled, drawn by rollicking Adirondack reindeer with German names and bearing sacks of humble gifts from Saks Fifth Avenue for everybody's imagined Christ child. Christ climbed down from his bare tree this year and ran away to where no Bing Crosby carolers groaned the night tight Christmas, where no Radio City Angels ice skated wingless through a winter wonderland into a jingle bell heaven daily at 8:30 with midnight mass matinees. Christ climbed down from his bare tree this year and softly stole away into some anonymous Mary's womb again, where in the darkest night of everybody's anonymous soul, he waits again, an unimaginable and impossibly immaculate reconception, the very craziest of second coming. Which, by the way, I understand is sung in certain Unitarian churches on Christmas.
Okay.
Let's hear it for the Unitarians.
I'm gonna have to Google that. Okay, that's it for our poems for today. We do these shows every third Tuesday of every month at 6 p.m. Pacific time. If you're not on our mailing list to get announcements about it and updates on all the other things that we're up to, just drop us an email. I'll put that in the chat. Next month is April. I suspect we'll be wrapping up Lent.
Oh, might be fooling people.
We might be fooling people.
Yeah.
I suspect there'll be poems about Lent and Easter and spring, and probably more baseball and whatever else pops into our heads. In the meantime, March 24th would have been Lawrence Ferlinghetti's 102nd birthday, and we're probably going to be doing a little something for that in person in North Beach. Stay tuned. We'll send the word out. Thank you all. We apologize for screwing up the Zoom thing. We're going to get this down eventually. Okay.
Okay.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Until next time.
I hope you had a good time. And